Just days ago, in the waters near Adelaide, South Australia, a free diving session took an unexpected turn when 32-year-old environmental science student Bridget O'Shaughnessy was severely bitten in the face by a great white shark.
Just saw the boat come into the shore, and at first we thought it might have been a drowning with one of the aqua kids.
We were looking at it like it's a school thing and a boat's come in.
Now Bridget and her dive partner, Brian Gordon-Peters, they were free diving at Port Noarlunga Jetty, a spot that's well known among local divers for its clear waters. Now, although sharks have been sighted in these waters, they are by most accounts infrequent, but nevertheless it's still important to note that the area's waters are home to a variety of potentially dangerous species of sharks, but sightings of great whites, like the one that attacked Bridget, they're reportedly not common in this area, so this makes her life-threatening encounter all the more unfortunate.
You're very exposed in this area, so it's just one of those things that it was, we kind of thought it was inevitable it was going to happen at one point.
So as Bridget and Brian were immersed in their dive, they were free diving off this reef. The great white shark emerged without any warning or provocation, as they typically do, they're ambush predators. The shark targeted Bridget, and in the blink of an eye, it went on to deliver a severe bite to her head, face first. So it was at this point that Brian had to think quick, and he would heroically intervene by managing to what he described as push the shark away, a move that in hindsight likely played a key role in saving Bridget's life.
We got out of the water, walked back along the jetty, and I think there were about 5 ambulances, maybe 4 police cars and a few fire engines as well.
We heard people screaming, because people just scream for fun, but then
we realised that something obviously bad had happened.
And then we saw the ambulances and then the tent.
And it got pretty serious pretty quick.
We just saw some fella yelling at them to get out of the water and to help them. Some of the kids did see it. We've talked to a few of them, and they're saying they saw her face is all bloody and stuff.
So an emergency response team, they swiftly rushed to the scene as a traumatized Bridget was immediately rushed to Flinders Medical Center. There she underwent 2 surgeries to address extensive injuries, nerve damage, and to remove the multiple shark teeth that were embedded in her skull as a result of the brutal attack. Meanwhile, the police, they evacuated the beach, and their efforts, they were focused mainly on locating the elusive shark. They tried to do this by air as well as by water, but with the vastness of the ocean, of course, it was very hard to find this shark, and the search was called off shortly after, and it proved futile. Now, this incident at Port Noarlunga, it's not an isolated event by any means. It adds actually to a growing list of shark encounters in South Australia's waters. It has seen over 1,100 reported shark bite investigations since 1791, and as a matter of fact, when we talk about recent times, in 2022, the country recorded the 2nd highest number of unprovoked shark attacks globally, and while fatalities are rare, the threat remains real and unpredictable. And this was demonstrated by the tragic death of a man outside of Sydney Beach earlier that year, the city's first fatal shark attack since 1963, in fact. And while specific statistics for 2023 are not readily available, the trend observed in these recent years suggests a rise in shark attacks in Australia, especially given the rising number of incidents throughout the last 2 decades, which I'm about to get into. Now, in response to the increasing frequency of shark encounters, local authorities have intensified their monitoring of the beaches. Safety measures and public advisories are being reinforced, urging both locals and tourists to exercise caution when entering the water. And despite the surge in recent attacks, the South Australian communities, they stand united in ensuring that safety is their #1 priority. So nearby schools, the students had the day off. It's called a pupil-free day in Australia, and plenty of these students were in fact in the water when they saw the rescue boat come to shore. And of course, many of them didn't even know that this was a shark attack. They just assumed it was a drowning. However, shocked students then witnessed the woman's severe injuries, and they realized that this was much worse than what they anticipated, at which point patrols would keep a close watch following the attack. They swept the area, they checked for sharks, both by air and water, and of course they made sure the beaches were closed and that swimmers were swimming on the other side of the water if they were going to swim, and many of them didn't even go waist deep after that. They were just staying in the shallow and being very cautious.
You always think about when you're down at the beach, there's going to be sharks, and you never think that when you're going to be there, it's going to happen, but obviously today it's happened.
Now this attack is the 4th in South Australia this year, and once again it's only been 11 days since Todd Gendel was taken while surfing outside of Streaky Bay, an incident I've covered in depth. I'll leave that episode for you at the end screen of this video. It's a very tragic story. He's presumed to have been eaten whole. They couldn't find any remains of him, and I'm pretty sure the search by now has been called off. Now, shark attacks are much more common on the west coast of Australia, and the thing is that this attack on Bridget, it's really beginning to scare a lot of people along the metropolitan coastline. This marks only the 8th recorded shark attack in this part of Australia in the last century. Just a year ago in October, 19-year-old Nathaniel Drummond was abruptly struck by a great white shark during a surf ski race just off the coast of Seacliff. He was extremely lucky to have survived with no injuries, although his surf ski was left with a large gaping hole, which was indicative of course of the sheer size and power of the attacking shark.
I thought whoever it was instantly killed.
You don't realise how much you absolutely love your kids until something like that happens.
The other victims, however, they were tragically not as fortunate. In August of 2005, 23-year-old marine biology student Jared Stebbins, he had been fatally attacked while diving off the Glenelg Tier Reef. It was reportedly a brutal attack that was witnessed by multiple other students, many of which were his classmates. He is believed to have died of massive injuries during the attack, which occurred while he was resurfacing.
Do you feel any details at all? Nothing that happened down there?
Mate, you okay? You and your friends okay?
Now that fatal attack, it came just 9 months before another gruesome attack on Nick Peterson, when two great white sharks, one of which was reportedly as big as 5 meters long, with the other one being 4.7, attacked the 18-year-old as he was surfing behind a boat.
And they were looking out to the stern of the boat and shouting, and to the stern of the boat you saw this massive disturbance in the water, bubbles, and then it was just nothing.
Now the other 4 victims were Jonathan Lee, who was also fatally attacked by a white shark at Aldinga Beach in 1991, as he and his dive mates had been making their way back to the boat in murky waters. And then there was Terrence Gibson at Merino Rocks in 1987, who was presumed to have been killed by an approximately 3-meter-long great white during a routine working dive for scallops. Ray Bennett, who was only 13 years of age, was fatally attacked by a large great white as he was cooling off with a swim on a hot summer day. And that one happened back in 1936. And then finally at Brighton Beach in March of 1926, instructor Primrose White, prior to giving swimming lessons to a number of youth who were assembled on the pier, she decided to go for a swim by her lonesome, and soon afterwards witnesses reported that she screamed and disappeared beneath the surface. The suspect species of shark was interestingly described by eyewitnesses to be a shovel nose or a ground type species, with others describing it as a 7-gill shark. Now the reason that I briefly went over these attacks is because although I'd mentioned that there'd only been 8 shark attacks in the region in the last century, it's highly worth noting and quite frankly concerning that 4 of these 8 attacks have occurred within the last 19 years, as opposed to the other 4 which occurred over a span of 65 years. This rise in shark attacks in South Australia, or quite frankly in Australia in general, it's likely due to the global rise in the number of swimmers in the water over the years, increasing the possibility of shark encounters and thus attacks. And in my opinion, as tragic as these incidents are, they're also sadly very much avoidable. Rest in peace to all the victims of these shark attacks, and wishing the best of luck to Bridget for a speedy recovery. This is Animal Al. Till next time.